Well, thank you all for being here. So, Robin, I want to start with you. Can you take us back to the start of Little Women? Because I know that you and Amy Pascal and everyone had to push really hard to get this film made. It was a long road. And I heard that Amy sort of had to pivot the pitching of the film to be kind of like a Christmas movie.
Oh, I never heard the pivot. I think that they knew that at some point that it would have to be released around Christmas because of when we finally got the green light to shoot it. So that makes sense. Now, I think that Amy had a huge contribution to it because she and I had been talking for 12 years about making Little Women. She was not in a position of power when I first met her. She was working as a sort of assistant/development person for a British producer who had her kind of run his offices while he lived in London. And so she would just read all the scripts in town and call up all the writers and have meetings on her own because she's Amy Pascal. So that was how I met her. Her name is Amy Beth Pascal. So she was named after two of the characters in the book. And I said, you know, we've never gotten these adaptations right. We need to have one that's about what the book is really about. Because in all these other movies it is about who do these girls marry. But this is a book about female ambition.
What's wrong about who they marry, though?
Well, you know, it's not a driving question for everyone. So, and it certainly wasn't for Louisa May Alcott. So at any rate, eventually, after 12 years, she had worked her way up until she was working for Columbia Pictures, and she had developed Groundhog Day and A League of Their Own. And so they said, well, all right, Amy, you can do something. And she said, I want to do Little Women. And so she and I sat down together, no producer involved, and we just started imagining our movie. And then the first thing after we turned it in was, well, we're not going to make this. And so Amy, being Amy, said, let's go talk to the marketing people. And there was a fantastic guy there named Sid Ganis who had 4 daughters. And he said, oh, we should do this. So, you know, it was always hard. And then it was like not enough money, $16 million. Over here, they're making a movie about King Arthur. That's a $90-some million movie. And over here, well, we'll give you $16 million. So at any rate, you know, it was a slog. But I also want to say that it is a slog to change the paradigm anytime that you're doing it. And so we weren't persecuted. That was just, we were in the middle of what became a sea change. And we're, you know, look at women's basketball this year. It takes a minute, but it does change.
Yeah, well said. And the film was such a success, and so many people loved it around the world. Trini, when you first got the script, you know, what were your thoughts about it?
I was just so excited to even get to audition. And I'm not even sure I read the script before I went in. I just was ready to... Oh, I'm sorry. I was ready to audition without reading, with reading. It didn't matter. I really was hoping to be a part of it at all because this classic was such a huge part of my life. My mother bought it for me when I was 11, and then I read it again when I was 14. I used to draw the drawings in the Grosset and Dunlap version. I drew Meg. I drew Under the Umbrella. It was so meaningful to me, and it was just a dream come true to get to be a part of it.
Yes, Samantha, you played the older Amy, so it's a shared role with Kirsten Dunst, who plays the younger version. What did you think about that aspect? Was that exciting for you? Did you want to be a part of it?
Oh, of course I wanted to be a part of it. I mean, it was an incredible collection of women making this movie, and to be part of such a classic. And yes, that was a unique, particular challenge to play Kirsten older. I'll share a little anecdote about something that happened during shooting, because Kirsten was 8 years old when we were shooting.
I think she was 12, and then she turned 13.
No.
So
really? I thought she was 8. How old was she, Robin?
She wasn't 8. I believe she was 12.
She was 12? Okay, well, she was bored while we were shooting in Vancouver. And there for 2 weeks ahead of time. We had 2 incredible weeks of rehearsal where we got to do dancing lessons and singing lessons, and I had painting classes, and it was extraordinary. I'd never prepared for a movie like that. And I got into the van one morning, and she jumped into the van, and she had that beautiful long flaxen blonde hair. I don't know if you remember this. And she had cut her bangs this short. And I looked at her and I said, "Dear God, what have you done?" And they had built me the most beautiful, most expensive wig of long blonde hair. And they had to cut that wig. They came to me and they said, we are so sorry, but we're gonna have to give you those really dorky bangs. Because that's the only way we can marry. We'll build another one after that, but initially, in order to make it flow so that I looked like her, I had to have those really dorky bangs.
That's really funny. So, Eric, for you, I mean, this was a relatively small role. What drew you to want to be part of Little Women?
I grew up with a lot of older sisters, and I had grown up with the book, and I heard about this from a friend of mine who was doing it, and I called my agent and said, "I'd love to go meet them." They said, "We don't want you to, because there's not a role for you." And I said, "No, I love the book, and can I read the script?" And I read the script, and I thought it was fantastic. So I said, "Really, can I?" I remember I met with Amy Pascal. I don't know if you were there, Robin. You might have been. And they said, "There's really no part for you." And I said, "Well, no, I know I'm too old to play Laurie, but what about John Brooke?" And they said, "Oh, okay, there's not a lot to do." And I said, "I don't care, I just love it. I just loved being there. I loved the material. It was just a wonderful time."
He also loves Jane Austen. I just want to complete the picture.
And TCM, so we love you, Eric. So, Robin, this was directed by Gillian Armstrong, who I mentioned. I read that Winona Ryder thought about her as a director, a possibility, but she took a little bit of convincing because she'd made a period film about a headstrong female writer before this. But what made her perfect for this version of Little Women?
Well, I also thought that she should direct this. Winona said, "I want to do this, and I want to be a female director." And at that time, there were just not even a handful of people who were female who had been allowed to direct a studio picture. And so, Gillian Armstrong was at the top of my list because I had loved My Brilliant Career. And it wasn't so much like, oh, it's period and this is period. It was more her sensibility and her sense of pacing and how much she let the characters kind of breathe in that movie. So I very much wanted her, and I don't know who finally talked her into it. It's probably Amy who could make anything happen. So.
No, she was a wonderful director, and something I love in watching this version is the production design, the costumes, the sets. Trini, what was it like to be on those sets, those locations? Everything looked so authentic.
It was like time travel, getting to go back and see what things might have looked like then. One of my favorite moments in the costumes in the movie is the simple dress that Meg wears to Vanity Fair, to that big party that she doesn't quite fit into. You see that dress later on Samantha, and I just love that detail. But it was just, we had too much fun, like to the point that we would get in trouble, and I don't think Gillian always appreciated the giggles, but we did really build a bond and a family feeling around this set. It was really wonderful.
You definitely feel that when you're watching the movie. It feels like a family and you have such great chemistry. Samantha, what was it like to be with this cast? Because you had Susan Sarandon, Winona Ryder, you three, Christian Bale, Gabriel Byrne, Kirsten Dunst, who I mentioned, Claire Danes in her first feature film, and an actress that our audience knows and loves, Mary Wicks.
Mary Wicks.
Was it easy to create that family feeling with the cast?
It really was. I mean, it was a magical time. We were all in Vancouver together. I always love working on location because I do think you get that opportunity to be so myopic and really bond. And I think we all knew we were a part of something very special. And again, as I said, I'd never been on a film where we were given that opportunity to really prepare in that way. And I think that was so essential in helping us become these little women. It was like a little women boot camp.
And Eric, I was reading that some of this, or maybe all of it, was shot in summer in Vancouver. Was that right? Was that uncomfortable?
Yes, the corsets were awful in the summertime. But I remember we did the scene where we're walking down the lane in the snow, and they had laid out at least 2 acres of white cotton wool on the ground, because we didn't have CGI back then. And we were wearing these wool, heavy things and sweating. It was...
And mashed potato flakes were snowflakes
Right.
that they would shake out of a box or something.
Yeah. Some very strange things happened.
Well, it looks magical on the screen. And Robin, as I was saying, this film was a huge success and it is still so beloved. What was the reaction like to this film doing well? I heard that it was still thought of as maybe just a bit of a fluke that it did well.
Yeah, it takes a minute for people to understand what's really happening. One of the things that I said, they were always talking about quadrants of audiences. And I would say, you don't have to get more than one quadrant if the entire quadrant comes. And so that was also what Sid Ganis thought. He said, if you market it properly, you're going to get exactly who should be seeing this movie. So it was kind of a surprise for the people who didn't quite understand what they had. Like there was something in the trades, somebody at the studio had given an interview saying that the movie had cost $16 million and they thought it would probably do about $16 million. And I was so offended, and I turned to Denise Denovi, who was my co-producer, and I said, it just enrages me. I just feel like going to that guy's office, And she said, just wait, you're going to have to build a vomitorium. She said, when this comes out, he's going to be killing himself to get credit for it. And wow, was she right.
Yeah, because it wasn't just women who turned out to see this film, it was everyone.
When we had the industry premiere for it and the lights came up, men were crying all over the room. And there was one guy in particular who much later came into my husband's professional life. I didn't know who the guy was at the time, but his wife was helping him up the aisle. So
that's amazing. Well, Trini, what is it like to be part of a movie that is still so beloved? 30 years later, parents show it to their kids. It's a Christmas tradition. We're honoring it here at the festival.
I'm just so thrilled I get to share it with my kids tonight, who they've seen it before, but in a movie theater with appreciative folk and with fellow friends from the cast. I cannot believe 30 years have gone by. It feels like maybe 10. So it's very shocking. I just want to add about Mary Wicks, because she was such a character, and you guys love her, that she would accuse me of having extra makeup on. And I said, I don't. She would say, she has eyeshadow. And I'd say, I don't have any eyeshadow on. But anyway, she was very cute and funny.
She's so good in the film as well. Samantha, when you think back on your time filming Little Women, what comes to mind?
Long walks in Vancouver. We would walk together as a group. We'd go...
And drink.
We did some drinking. There was some drinking. We were young. We were in our 20s. I forced Eric Stoltz to watch either Beverly Hills 90210 or Melrose Place. One of the two was very popular then, and I was like, no, you don't understand. It's so good. You have to watch it.
She did.
I did. I got him into one of those. I wish I remember which one it was, but it was, it was when we didn't have cell phones. We were with each other and having this magical experience.
Yeah, Eric, what was it like for you to be with this fantastic cast?
Well, I remember Trini's eyeshadow.
I told you not to say anything.
What was great was that I have this vivid memory. We were shooting some party scene where we were dancing or something, and we were waiting for lighting, and like 3 or 4 children ran around, and then 5 other kids ran over here, and a couple dogs. And Robin had her kids, and Susan Sarandon had her kids, and someone else had brought their kids. Jillian brought her kids. And the set, when it's run by women, that one in particular was fantastically free. It was like a wonderful dinner party with interesting people that you loved being around.
I love that. Well, we better let them get to the film. You guys have been very patient, so please join me in thanking Eric Stoltz, Samantha Mathis, Trini Alvarado, and Robin Swicord.